Hello and welcome to the all new, all different #1 comics podcast. I'm Dan. That's Benny. Benny, welcome back. It's been a minute since you and I talked, but I'm really stoked you're here. How the hell are you?
Great. Happy the holidays are all through and we're getting into the swing of things for this year. And real optimistic about all the new lineups we have hitting us this year from the comics world.
Man, there is some like really good stuff coming up. Obviously we're talking about, the new Ultimate Universe here, but that Ultimate X-Men looks so good. I'm really excited about the Ultimate Black Panther. Yeah, there's some really, really good stuff up and coming, especially like some creator-owned stuff. Should be a really good year for comics.
Yeah, and we're taking a look at the Ultimate Spider-Man today. Our first track into the Ultimate Universe. We might poke back in. I hadn't heard about that Black Panther, but I'd definitely like to look into that sometime.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Yeah, I really can't wait to check that one out. This is like super interesting though. Did you read Ultimate Invasion? Did you read that 4-part mini before this?
Ooh, I'm not actually sure I have. I remember reading one lead up to it with the Ultimate Mr. Fantastic breaking out of a cell, but other than that, I haven't seen that much on the new Ultimate reboot.
Yeah, the Ultimate Invasion kind of lead up series was really, really cool, and it kind of spoiler alert, obviously, and hopefully you'll read it anyways because it's a really cool 4-part. But it's the Maker, that Reed Richards type character, and he basically goes back, and of course they kind of do a little tiny exposition dump and say what happened anyways. But yeah, he goes back and stops all of the heroes from ever becoming heroes, and doesn't do the same with the villains and all of that. So yeah, it's really, really cool, little mini series lead up to this. But I don't know about you. This was the ultimate, forgive the word, kickoff for this Ultimate Universe at Marvel right now. It's really, really cool. Did you read the? I know we're quite different in age, so it's completely fine if you did not. But did you read the original Ultimate Marvel Universe run, any of those books?
Ooh, I grew up with a couple of them, yeah. Particularly near the end with the kind of conclusion with New York flooding from Magneto reversing the poles because the power of magnetism.
Yeah, gotta use the magnets in the earth.
Definitely some gruesome imagery for me. I should not have been reading as a kid. That one supervillain, the Blob eating Wasp. Ooh, terrible stuff. But
that was intense, right?
I did like a lot of the dark and gritty takes on some of the heroes. They were a bit of fun, but all in all, I'm kind of glad they stemmed away from a lot of the choices they made in that universe.
Yeah, and it was super interesting because if you didn't catch the pitch for it or whatever, if you just kind of dipped into some issues, basically, obviously, Marvel has this long history of publishing these characters. Of course, Thor, Fantastic Four, their core, their core roster, their Spider-Man, all of that, and it's always been a problem, the entry point for people. Always a huge problem for new readers. Hey, you've seen Spider-Man on the big screen. You've seen Tony Stark. All these people. So naturally, if you're checking out the MCU stuff and everything, or whatever, I guess this predates the MCU, but you want to hop into the comics, and check that out. And it's so different. It was polar opposites. It's that stuff's over here and that stuff's way over here. So it didn't make sense to a lot of people, especially with, a lot of that stuff coming into play. We had the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man around the time, the Fox X-Men stuff and all of that. So it just didn't make sense. And Marvel came up with this initiative. They're let's make an entry point. It will kind of reset everything at zero. So we'll see Peter Parker get bit by the spider again and start from there, and then slowly introduce his rogues gallery and everything and so on. And they did the same thing with most of the books. So that's what that first Ultimate run was. This one's a little bit of a different thing they got going on. It doesn't it doesn't act like that stuff didn't exist, you know, or anything, but we are starting from zero, like in a different way, because the maker kind of unmade all of these heroes. And then I guess they're, you know, Tony Stark is getting the choice to, you know, reassemble them after his death and all of that. So
yeah, it's like an edited Ultimate Universe, edited by the maker, going through the time scale. And I really like that this isn't just going back to when all of the heroes were younger. It seems to have gone along with the sliding time scale, and all of the heroes are at their kind of age where their other universe counterparts are at, just still at the base of being a civilian lifestyle.
Right. And that's something I think that's I don't know necessarily that like a lot of people have a problem with, but I would say like it comes up in conversation. You know, a lot of times people, especially some of these, you know, legacy characters that have been around like a really long time, Spider-Man and all that, Superman, Batman, whatever. A lot of people are like, you know, how long are they, like 30 years old or in their 20s or whatever? It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, of course, you know, we've had older Spider-Man before, but this is like a Spider-Man, like like a middle-aged Spider-Man, basically. Like he's probably, I would imagine, like in his late 30s, maybe, you know, 35 onward, and he's obviously married to Mary Jane, has a very, very happy life with 2 kids, and of course, we're gonna get into the book, but you know, huge spoilers for anyone that hasn't read it. The biggest spoiler of all. Uncle Ben is alive and working at the Daily Bugle. So, man, that's crazy. And of course, like I want to talk about all that with you. I want to get your reaction on all that because wow. But yeah, it's cool, and it's, you know, a lot of times we do, you know, or I'm saying we, like I work for Marvel. Marvel does these, you know, events, or they do these books, and at best you get divided. You know, you get a good amount of people who like it. You get, you know, some of the haters in there or whatever, especially something that's like that people see as rehashed or whatever. I'm not hearing any of that about this. This has got such positive responses from the community. Every review for this is sky high. And of course, you know, this is a heavily printed book. Like there's a lot of these in comic book shops, but this sold out day of release. I don't know about where you are. Definitely where I was. There was, I mean, after like, you know, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, you weren't finding a copy of this, no matter what cover it was. Oh
yeah, I wasn't even able to pick up a physical copy this time.
Really? Ah, man, yeah. That sucks because let me tell you, of course, the art in this is really, really good, and you get to see it digitally. But like, it just, God, it looks so good on paper. It looks so wonderful. But yeah, I mean, this is the hot book right now. I didn't think anything could so quickly replace Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. I think this is at that level now. I think this is the number one book right now, which is crazy because Beneath the Trees has been there for a little bit. But yeah, man, this is intense. Everybody loves it. You don't have that division. I'm hearing such good stuff about it from everybody. You know, spoiler alert here. I love it. I don't know if you feel to share that sentiment or not, but
yeah.
Let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Of course, I'm going to do my usual thing. I do want to read the solicit and then talk about the creators really quick. But, you know, from the solicit from Marvel, it says, the new Ultimate Spider-Man for a new Ultimate Universe. Visionary writer Johnathan Hickman and acclaimed artist Marco Cicchetto. Sorry, I won't be able to say that correctly. Bring you a bold new take on Spider-Man. With this, the debut title of a new line of Ultimate Comics. After the events of Ultimate Invasion, the world needs a hero. Who will rise up to take on that responsibility? Prepare to be entangled in a web of mystery and excitement as the all-new Spider-Man comic redefines the wall crawler for the 21st century. So yeah, great. I love solicits like that. I don't know about you. I don't know if you're like heavy on reading solicits or not, or if you just grab what you like or whatever, but I like to kind of go through and read solicits, just to kind of see what's going on. A lot of times they don't match up with the story, and a lot of times they're like spoilers in themselves. And that one was great. Like that was written so well to me. It didn't spoil anything, and it really didn't tell you anything from the story other than this is the new Ultimate Spider-Man.
I jump around from time scale to time scale through comics. Like DC and Marvel all have so many different runs, so I find those listed important and vital to read, just so I can get a bit of history on what the story actually. I can get a feeling for what the story wants me to remember going in.
Yeah, and yeah, I got you. I'm the same way. Like I like to read them. You know, depending on what it is. Sometimes it sucks though. It's like you go in blind and you get spoiled by that solicit, and you're like, I wish they didn't say all that. But you know, they did a good job here. Let's talk about the creators really quick. Benny, how familiar are you with Johnathan Hickman?
I a week ago I was actually just reading his Fantastic Four run, and I am a huge House of X and Powers of X fan. I really loved a lot of the Krakoa era of X-Men. X-Men is probably like my biggest fandom I'm a part of, and I am really impressed with a lot of his other stuff. Like he's done some Avengers as well, and Marco, the artist, has some stuff that's he seems kind of new to the scene to me. He's worked on Daredevil, Doctor Strange, Punisher, but I am really into his art style so far. It's super detail oriented. The backgrounds pop out and the facial expressions are lifelike and very realistic. Big fan.
Yeah, I'm with you. He is like an all-star. He's killing it here. This is like one of those comics, and I like to think this about the original Ultimate Spider-Man run as well, like that volume 1. Really, really good. Loved the story, and it fit for the time. I think going back and reevaluating it, it's maybe a little too sleek, a little too modernized or whatever. But this is like a classic feel. This is just, I mean, every panel from this, like you want to print out to hang on your wall. It looks amazing. And you know, the perfect use of subtlety, but you know, really bringing out those big details. I love how like every now and again you get like this cool, like scratchy kind of lived in background and stuff that kind of fleshes out the world. Yeah, this is like such a great team up for these two guys to work together. Here's something that I would like to say. I don't know about you. Like, I love to read comic book scripts. Like when they're out there, you know, there's not a lot. Most people kind of like don't let you see how the Kool-Aid is made, or is that the right term? I don't know, but they don't really show you how that process is done. You know, they kind of keep that close to the chest a lot. A little while ago, I was looking at a Greg Pak script, and it was really cool. He kind of like went through, you know, what he does in his process and everything, and I really appreciate that. I would love to see how much freaking detail or lack thereof that Johnathan Hickman is relating to Marco here, because I have to think he's like, I need a smirk on Uncle Ben's face right here. I need J. Jonah to, you know, ball up his fist exactly like this, and, you know, be 3 inches away from his face. Like the level of detail here is just crazy. And if they're reading each other that well, like that's just so impressive. But yeah, this is fleshed out really, really well. Really, really good team of creators here. Of course, we have Matt Wilson on colors and Corey Patet on letters. So yeah, we don't have to go into their backstory or anything, but just wanted to acknowledge them really quick. Dude, let's go into this thing. Enough of that. Yes. I don't know how spoiler heavy you want to get. I don't know if you want to like say everything. I'm open to that if you are. But
I think we got to go to the last page of this one.
Yeah, dude. Like, there's no way to not bring everything into this. But you know, I didn't write a synopsis you know, of what I read. I didn't feel any need to do that. Let's just like go in and break it down. This is obviously, you know, we're opening up and we're seeing Peter with his family. We're introduced to Mary Jane, who looks phenomenal. Peter looks phenomenal. Their kids look great. All of that. And Peter's got his job at the paper, and then, you know, we see J. Jonah Jameson, and I love the fake out, dude. I don't know how you felt about that.
I fell for it immediately, and I was so very happy. But JJ comes in and is shouting "Parker, Parker" as he always does, only to breeze right past Peter and go and confront Ben Parker, which is a surprise, but of course he would be alive. Spider-Man isn't in this universe yet, so Ben's kicking around being a co-manager or a co-editor at the Daily Bugle and gets let on like a house on fire with JJ.
Yeah, and I love the fact that I don't know what to call it. Like, you know, you kind of start out and you're like, okay, what's the position of these two going to be? Because we know J. Jonah, like he's a hothead, like he says what he feels, you know, and he feels some crazy stuff sometimes and all of that. And I don't think we know Ben well enough. Obviously there's been stuff with Ben in it. You know, we've seen Uncle Ben like in various forms here and there, but obviously the character, you know, was killed off very early in the story.
Not too much screen time.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't know like a whole lot about Ben, but you get these two together and it's almost like, you know, J. Jonah thinks he's going to call the shots. Ben's not putting up with that at all. he's like, you know, I didn't reply to you because you were yelling and I'm not going to. I love that about him. And then you take that and they're like in this weird like bromance together. Like they're such bros, but they like love each other. And I really liked that dynamic of it. I thought that was such a cool decision to make. It's not something that I expected. And then here's where it got me, because I don't know about you. A few times, you know, I tried not to, but I'm only human. Got a little emotional in this book. You know, whenever sorry, I guess let's, you know, be relative to the story. So obviously they're going off to a like memorial of some sort for all the people that died in this big accident, which of course Aunt May was one of them. So that is why Peter and Uncle Ben are going to this memorial. J. Jonah is again, he's got his opinions. He's not having it. Peter Parker's, you know, kind of got his top button undone. He's got no tie on and he's like, you're wearing a tie to this thing. I'm taking off my tie. I'm putting it on you. I'm tying it up. And, you know, he's like the sweetest he can possibly be to Peter, which is so cool. But he kind of ends it on that. I want that tie back.
Yeah. And that's such a really powerful moment because Peter is asking Jonah in a kind of roundabout way how his uncle is doing. And that is such like a strong, and real life scene of like men talking to each other about and kind of asking around a subject, asking how their friends are doing. And some of the best thing this comic does is such lifelike dialogue between characters.
Right. Yeah, you're completely right there, because you would think, you know, a logical person would just say like, if you were upset, Benny, you know, I should just go, are you all right, dude? Is everything okay? Like, you know, you want to talk or whatever. But you're right. Guys are, you know, so roundabout about that. Hey, is Benny doing okay? You know, I'm asking your friends instead of you, you know, and everything. And yeah, you're completely right. That's definitely a real life thing that happens. I love that they kind of address that here, or that they, you know, dive in and really address it. Really, really cool. And, you know, next up, we're at that memorial, and Matt Murdock is giving a speech, of course, and
he's a priest. Yeah.
Yes. Full priest outfit. What do you call that? The robe with the little I don't know, whatever that's called. But full priest outfit. He's giving his speech there, and then he invites Harry Osborn up on the stage, who has lost his parents also in this big attack. And, you know, Harry kind of goes through his feelings on it and everything. And then I would love it if you talk about what happens next, because, and what I'm talking about here, like, if you don't know what I mean, is whenever Peter and Uncle Ben end up back at the paper.
Ooh, yes. When they go back to the paper, they come into a regular scene of JJ shouting, but it's his last time shouting because he is quitting the Daily Bugle, which is apparently owned by none other than the Kingpin, who is doing very well for himself in this universe as well. No big surprise.
Sure.
And yeah, JJ packs his things, brushes past both the Parkers, and Ben follows quickly behind as well with him, deciding to leave the Bugle and go start reputable news source with J. Jonah Jameson. in none other than the bar with no name.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like, I'm really loving what they're doing here because, you know, this could be very easy to just set that up and say, okay, I'm leaving, I'm going, Ben, you're coming with me, or ask Ben. And then he says, yes, whatever. The way that Johnathan Hickman gets into this conversation, and like I said, I felt things a couple of times in this book, especially in Ben's conversation here of him deciding to leave and go along with J. Jonah. I mean, it's such stellar like advice that, you know, you would imagine you get yourself in life. I mean, he kind of starts out with like, you know, when he's talking to Peter and everything, he's like, I've lost my wife, you know, I don't have her anymore. You're grown, you have a family, all of this. What am I going to do? Just waste away at this paper and do what they tell me to do? Like, no, I'm going with my bro. Like, we're going to start this paper. And he's like, you know, a lot of times throughout the book, he's just like, you got to do, like, I mean, you know, sorry, but like, get your ass up and like, do it, you know, like a lot of times he's kind of giving that advice and saying it. And like, I know I told you something off air and I won't announce it here or anything, but like, I have to say, like, that hit really hard when I read it, because I was like, I'm kind of at that place in life right now where it's like, you know, yeah, things are scary. You could just back off and do what's comfortable, or you could really just take a swing, like, you know, like the famous Wayne Gretzky quote. I know you're like up near the frozen tundra of Canada, so you probably know it, but like
nothing about football.
no, hockey, but
hockey. Oh God, I mean, that's even worse.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know nothing about sports. The only thing I know about this is I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, and he quotes it a lot. But yeah, it's something along the lines of Wayne Gretzky saying, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." So, you know, great life advice. You know, you can use that towards anything. And again, trust me, I know nothing about sports. I don't watch sports. I don't play sports. Not a sports guy. But I mean, you know, it's right. He's right. How can you? I mean, sometimes you got to get up and fail. You know, sometimes you got to try. And what else are you going to do? Like, sit there and dwell on it that you never did. Something that was going to make you happy, or something that made more sense to you in that moment, or something that was a big risk. Like, again, you know, maybe because of where I am in life right this moment, but like, it just hit hard. I was like, this is great. I'm loving reading this, and I'm loving the emotion that I'm feeling from Ben's words and the way he's characterized on the page, and like his emotion and everything. Like, it hit.
And it's hitting Peter Parker too, because Peter has this really lovely life. He's got his beautiful wife, these stellar kids. He's rocking the beard, but there's something missing in his life, and he's not quite sure what. But he has this hole in him, and when he talks to Ben, all that advice you went over becomes super relevant to him. He has this thing missing in his life that he wants to go strive for and do something that completely upends and changes it. But he's ready for it.
Another element, and look, I feel like a broken record. I feel like I keep saying, you know, another thing that I love, but it's going to be very hard for me to take something out of this I didn't love. But
so much good stuff.
Yeah, really. The conversations, you know, I mean, they seem so realistic to me. And we're talking about, you know, a dude bit by a radioactive spider. So very cool. But of course, you know, before all of that, we're talking more realistic, more real life. But, you know, his conversation with Mary Jane, again, Peter sits down with Mary Jane, you know, she kind of pushes him a little bit. She's like, all right, you know, you mentioned it this morning, you know, there's a cloud that hangs over you, blah, blah, blah. We're going to sit down and talk. Like, you got to tell me what you're going to say, whatever. So the two kind of sit down. And again, as she's pressing, she's like, look, I don't care, whatever it is, I'm here. Like, we're going to see it through. And he's like, I need a change in life. And she's like, yeah, you do, you know, whatever. And then he's like, no, I need like a change. And she's like, is anything changing between you and me? And he's like, never, absolutely not. And she's like, okay, good. Then I'm here. Like, whatever it is, like, we'll deal with it together. And again, you know, the raw emotion that Johnathan Hickman and Marco Cicchito are able to interject into these conversations here is insane. Like, I feel like I'm a spectator, like, you know, right there watching this happen. Like, I can't look at these as like illustrations. I can't look at this as a fabricated conversation. It just seems so real, these two sitting down and talking about this.
this is a couple who very clearly have each other's backs and are in for it for the long haul and are going to be supporting 100 wherever they go. And I am absolutely here for it. This is just a really nice breath of fresh air to the character. I know Spider-Man, we see so many different takes, especially with all of the Spider-Verse in the comics, the movies going on, but this is a new look at Peter Parker, who is going to be making a bunch of big changes to his life. He's going to probably take a couple of missteps, but he's eager and wants to do something different and have probably the time of his life doing it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I want to think through, well, of course, you know, we should probably get to where we're going before I say anything about it. But yeah, you're right. This is going to be something huge for him. It's going to be something very different for him. Look, Peter looks, you know, like he's in great shape and everything. So don't get me wrong. He doesn't have like a beer gut or anything like that. He's looking good, full head of hair, you know, like you said, he's rocking the beard. Everything's looking great. I can imagine, though, trying to hop into that spandex at, you know, 35, 40, whatever it is, and web sling off the rooftops has got to be a little bit challenging. But I guess we're going to find out how that works. But yeah, moving along in the story here, basically, Peter's given this. We flash back to the day before, and Peter's given this orb from a holographic Iron Man. And, you know, I haven't followed Iron Man very closely in the comics lately. I haven't been reading the ongoing or anything like that. And obviously this is the Ultimates universe, but Tony Stark's looking pretty damn young to me in this. His hologram looks like he's like, I don't know, 20.
Ultimate Tony Stark is apparently a terrorist in this universe, but he knows that the Maker is messing with the timeline, and his plan is to put the spark of heroism into the world with Spider-Man. He is giving Peter Parker the spider which bites him in that orb, and with a message to become a hero for Earth and fight for the people. And it all starts with Peter Parker.
Yep. And, you know, one of the coolest things about this, which is hard to say because, you know, everything about this is so cool, but is the fact that, you know, you're almost treating like holographic Tony Stark like a Sam Jackson from the MCU. You know, he's almost like we're doing these heroes.
We're getting the band back together.
Yeah, exactly. It's so cool though, and I buy it. I think that that's the main thing that, you know, the main takeaway from this story, and the main takeaway from, you know, obviously the creative team and all of that, at least on my end, is, I mean, obviously, suspension of disbelief. We're dealing with superheroes. We're dealing with, you know, sorcery, magic, whatever you want to call it. Not stuff of our world. But, you know, the raw emotion in this is so heavy. It's just there, and it's perfect. And you think, you know, at this stage in life, like, this all makes sense. Like, it makes sense for Peter, for Mary Jane, for their kids, for Uncle Ben, for J. Jonah, everybody to be going through what they're going through, and to have the reactions that they have. You know, it all seems so natural. The chemistry's there for everybody and everything. I think that, you know, the way that this book ends is perfect. They ended on the, you know, the best cliffhanger, the best note that they could. And of course, please, Benny, give them the final page reveal.
Yes, final page reveal. We see a full spread of a silhouetted figure standing heroically on a building, and it is very clearly Peter Parker in a Spider-Man suit, which looks to be from, I'm not sure if it's just a silhouette. It may just be a blacked out version of the suit, like the symbiote. It might even be the symbiote for all we know. We don't know what Tony put in that orb. It could be a bit of an extra booster to help him kick off the ground with the web slinging. But it's this beautiful shot with the sun shining down on him, ready to go and face whatever comes.
Yeah, and just you're right. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And it's Johnathan Hickman, so just know this going in. Anybody who's not a huge Johnathan Hickman fan, like Johnathan Hickman knows how to write and he knows how to world build. He's not going to play this completely straight. So if there is other elements mixed in there, like I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. But yes, just very cool. Ends on the perfect note. I hate to say this, and I don't want to, I'm sure we have more to talk about. We have things we want to say still and everything, but I would be like hard pressed to not say this is like a perfect comic book. Dude, I can't find anything. Please, please, Benny, tell me there's something in here that you didn't like. Tell me there's something that didn't work for you. Tell me there's a panel that I missed where like Peter Parker's like flicking off the camera or something. There's got to be something in here.
All right, there is one thing that we kind of glossed over.
Mm-hmm.
Ben and JJ aren't the only people mad at Kingpin right now, because Kingpin gets his car bombed. I'm not sure if he actually survives it, but he is attacked by a Green Goblin in a suit that is very tactical that I am not personally the biggest fan of, but it's something new. It's kind of gritty like the Tobey Maguire ones. It's not as hard-shelled as it. It's kind of more vest-like and full combat tactical gear, but it's a new version of Green Goblin. I'm not sure if Osborn faked his death and in the Tony Stark terrorist attack, or it's the young Osborn. I don't remember the names. There's two of them, but both have had shots at being the Green Goblin in the past many a time. Or it could be some other third person. I'm never really sure who's behind the mask, but
sure, exactly.
He is likely going to be a big antagonist for Spider-Man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you point out that that Kingpin, the car bombing or whatever's happening there. Now, when I first read this, I read my print copy the first 3 times I read it because I love this comic and I've read it quite a few. But today when I was preparing, I went ahead and read it digitally. Felt like being a bum, I was like, let me lay in bed, let me zoom in on my phone. So I thought the same thing. I was like, did Kingpin just die? Like, what just happened here? And I zoomed in on that tiny panel, and Kingpin is being escorted away from the wreckage. So Kingpin is still alive. And on top of that, yeah, who's behind the Goblin mask? Who knows? I mean, it could be Harry, could be his dad, whose name I don't remember either. Maybe it's his mom. I have no clue. It could be anybody. It could be like a random person. It could be J. Jonah Jameson for all I know. I don't know what's going on now.
Maybe Ben Parker finally put on a mask and entered the world of supervillainy.
Right? And what I'm trying to say here is, Johnathan Hickman, again, he's not going to play it completely straight. He's going to throw in some curveballs there. So I'm ready to be completely open for anything, but I know this is just very, very exciting. This is really cool. It's written so well. It's illustrated so well. I don't know. I mean, we broke down the book. I don't know. Give me your thoughts. Give me, your questions, your thoughts. Like, tell me everything. Spill it all.
I'm probably not going to key into the whole Ultimate Universe revival just because that's a whole lot to take on at one time, but I do definitely want to keep a tab on this new Ultimate Spider-Man and just kind of in general some of the stuff Hickman is getting into, because he is usually a very compelling author, and I also want to check out some of the Marco's other artwork because I really dig this style.
Yeah, 100% with you. Really, really, really great stuff. Now, speaking of the new Ultimate Universe, the launch of the Ultimate Universe, like part 2, I don't know what we're supposed to call it, but this new Ultimate Universe, again, I'm really stoked about the Black Panther book. The Ultimate X-Men book that's coming out, illustrated and written by Peach Momoko. So that's I know that was like a bold choice. I don't know how you feel about Peach Momoko. I love Peach Momoko. She is, to me, such a amazing artist, really cool stylized stuff that, you know, it looks like, I'm pretty sure Peach Momoko is Japanese, but I can't say for sure. She's, I don't know her exact nationality, so I don't want to sound ignorant about that, but, you know, it's very stylized in that style. So it's very like manga inspired, but like very watercolory at the same time. It's very cool, unique style. And I've already seen, you know, there's quite a few people on message boards, League of Comic Geeks, CGC boards, whatever, who are like, you know, I'm gonna check out Spider-Man. I'm gonna check out this and this and this. I'm skipping X-Men because I don't like Peach Momoko's art, whatever. Which insane to me. But again, art's subjective. Everything's not for everybody. Sure. She was the artist of the year in I think 2019. So and you know, Marvel's definitely given her some projects. She's done a lot with X-Men. She's done a lot of reimagining. And I think she's really proven herself writing and illustrating that stuff. And what she plans on doing with this Ultimate X-Men universe, all I can tell you is I remember reading something about it kind of centers around armor, if you remember that character.
Yes, I've seen a couple promotional pieces for it, and I haven't read much of her work, but the colors are really popping out to me. Yeah. The kind of, like you said, manga-inspired line work seems really striking, and I think would suit the character pretty great. Seeing how this holographic armor just surrounds this teenager is going to be really cool in fight scenes and for dramatics, but I definitely want to key into the X-Men portion of the Ultimate event.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that. And I just wanted to get that out there. But circling back around to this book, you know, I've already said it a million times. I think it would be no surprise that this is honestly a perfect 10 for me. I could not find a single thing about this book that I didn't like. I absolutely loved every element of it. I think everybody worked in harmony so well together. Of course, you know, Hickman's writing along with Chichetto's art, along with those colors there, along with the lettering, everything was perfect. Everything.
Just great synergy between all of the people on the crew on this. And that's so important to get a good back and forth, because when the art and dialogue don't line up, it leads to just pure confusion. But this really feels like a dream coming true, to see a really great depiction of Spider-Man, especially in comparison for recent years. I know that a lot of people aren't fans of the current run going on, but like I mentioned before, this is a really nice fresh of breath air for Peter Parker, and it's going to be a hard recommend to tune into Ultimate Spider-Man from me.
Oh yeah, likewise. I'm definitely there for issue number 2. Benny, before we wrap up, I do just have one thing that I want to say, that I want to ask you. And I know we talked about this off air as well. You told me to make sure I held you back. You know, if you started on a Zeb Wells soapbox, you didn't. You haven't mentioned a thing. Look, and if that's where you are, that's perfectly fine. If you're just like, I'm better than this, I'm not going to say a word. But Benny, let it all out if you have anything to say.
All right, yeah. Just going to take a small minute. I am frankly disgusted with the current way Marvel is portraying Spider-Man as somebody who has to always be suffering to be interesting. I was not a fan at all of a lot of the major artwork where it seems that everyone was just a cardboard cutout. And it's really sad to see the disdain Emma or Mary Jane has for Parker at the start of the run. But thankfully, it is going to be coming to a close for a little bit after around 50 issues. And we're going to see, hopefully, another spin on the character.
Right. Yeah. A whole new creative team. Yeah. Hopefully there will be, I'm with you. I share your sentiment. I can see some good in the Zeb Wells run. Not a lot. But a little tiny bit here and there. Yeah. Definitely not a lot. I don't think there's much to redeem it. But yeah, I'm with you. Now you take something like this and compare it against that, and yeah, you're 100% right. This is what we should have been doing all along. I know this is an Ultimate book, but holy shit, there is definitely something here for everybody. So yeah, highly recommended. You guys try to find a copy of this book. Again, if you're trying to get a print copy, you're definitely going to have to go to the secondary market. You're going to have to pay these inflated prices. I think at this point, the lowest you're even going to find one for is like 25, which is pretty crazy. You know, this released like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3.
Oh yeah, it's gone in some parts. I've seen it gone for even $60 to $75. Yep. It's wild.
Absolutely. Yeah, very. And to think, you know, I walked in my local comic book shop that day and there was a stack of each cover, you know, this big. And all I did was grab the one. Damn it. I'm an idiot. But yeah. And speaking of that, I have seen, you know, the famous previews cover that introduced Miles Morales before his inclusion in Ultimate Fallout 4 came out, and now that's debated as a first, you know, whatever. A lot of speculators talk about that. Well, this previews that has this Spider-Man cover on it as well is now in the running for that also. So I just thought I'd mention that. But yeah, at least go to, I don't know, Marvel Unlimited. Make sure you guys pick up a copy and read this because it is so worth it, digitally or print. Benny, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. It's been so awesome talking to you. I'm really glad we got to like hook back up after a little pause for the holidays and everything. I really look forward to reading some more awesome comics and talking about them with you. So thank you so much.
Yes, definitely want to keep coming back. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you and have a good rest of your day, man.
Bye.
And welcome back to the all new, all different #1 Comics podcast. Guys, I've got a creator interview on the line. I spoke to Niall Orourke just a few short days ago about a new book that Niall's got coming out. It's called The Crying Boy. It's effing terrifying, and you're definitely going to want to stick around and check out this interview. So listen to my cool transition music and then check out the interview. And hello and welcome back to the all new, all different #1 Comics podcast. We're here with a special creator interview. Today on the line, we have the comic book writer and also illustrator, Niall Orourke. Hello, Niall. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And hopefully I came close to getting your name correct.
Daniel, you came closer than anybody else has so far. So I give you credit. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you. I did have a little bit of off-screen training or off-air training, I guess.
Don't give away the, you know. Don't show them the strings here, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Not a peek behind the curtain. Yeah, Niall, thank you so much. Of course, you know, right up front, I got the pleasure of checking out your newest book that's coming out, The Crying Boy from Keen Spot. And that's definitely what we're going to be talking about today. You've got some other projects in the works as well. And of course, another ongoing title over there at Keen Spot. I want to know, you know, right from the get-go, number one, where did The Crying Boy come from? Because this reads just like, I feel like I am watching one of the creepiest, grief-ridden horror movies I've ever watched in my entire life. The second that I started, you know, reading this thing, and it's just, man, where did this come from? Where'd the inspiration come from? And please.
First, thank you very much. That was a great little review you just gave me there. That's exactly what I was going for. The artist I worked with, Rob Moran, great. I couldn't work with a better artist for this project. He's really got the tone down. He's great, you know. I'm so lucky to have him on board. He's the co-creator of this book. He designed the painting, so we were off and running with that, you know. So we did 6 pages, this 6-page sample, and we launched a Kickstarter in 2021. A very successful Kickstarter, and we were looking for a publisher. But to go back to the original, how the story came about, I wanted to create a black and white book, first of all. And I wanted it to be as dreary as possible, like a dark, cloudy, rainy day in like suburbia, you know. And I think we achieved that. To give it like kind of a style and atmosphere, because I was very influenced by the likes of John Constantine, Hellblazer, the early stuff, the early versions. I'm pretty sure they were in black and white. And a lot of British comics, of course, a lot of eerie, those kind of horror comics and Hammer, those early Hammer comics. stylistically, not necessarily like content wise, but yeah. So I was going for that, and of course, my number one horror film of all time, The Exorcist, played heavy on the story, on the whole theme of it, and the tone. So all that thrown in the mix, I had to come up with a story. So I said, you know what, a female protagonist, a widow, and her son, they move into my apartment, which is exactly where the book is set. It's set in my apartment, down to the
Wow.
every last detail, even the building. So the outside the window is like, that's my bedroom window when you look up. So I used Queens. I went heavy New York with this book because that's exactly what I know. I know Dublin, I know Ireland, but I haven't lived there for a long time. I've been living here 25 years. So I said, let me use Queens. Let me use exactly where I live, and let me give that like a let me let that that be the background to the story. So I wanted to get that across, of course, because I'm very proud of where I live. I love Queens, I love New York. But that's where I wanted the characters to live and breathe, and it helped me ground the story a lot more. Like, what would you do in that situation? You can't just have like a widow and her son move into suburban nowhere. Like, it wouldn't feel right to me. I want to be able to walk down that street and say, oh, yes, like it just feels so real. So that's where that's the initial book one came about, was me exploring those themes, of a desperate widow, a son that's thrown into the world of the supernatural. What do you do? Total despair. Who do you turn to? Are these events happening around you actually real, or are just because you're so grief stricken? It's all playing on your mind. What actually is going on? Do you need to see a shrink, or do you need to see a psychic? So I explore all that. Yeah, and that's where book one deals with all those issues. Well, not in the whole book. It's in the whole series. We'll delve into that, but I give you a taste of it in book one of what she's going through.
Yeah, and I like how you bring that up, because I talked about the grief a little bit when I was introducing the book, and you talked a little bit about it there. I think that it's really important in a horror story, especially a story like this, where you have to put yourself in that mindset. You have to, and I can only imagine, writing it must have been very strenuous at the very least. But to kind of put yourself in that mindset of the character and say, how much of this is you trying to work through your grief, or possibly your grief working against you? How much of this is happening? Of course, we don't need to know that here or anything. Of course, we want to read the book and find out what happens as time goes. But such a interesting place to put a character, because you have to take yourself down to that level of who am I at my core element, and who am I when I'm just trying to survive and protect my family, but I have this huge weight on my shoulders, that I can't get off, and something that, you're not easily going to process. It's going to take quite a long time to process something like that. We have the character who you show, really in that first issue, how in love Nadia was with her husband and with her life and everything they had going on. And then to have that pulled away from her, just ripped out of her hands, really comes across well on the page. I have to say.
Yeah, I wanted to get that straight away. That initial first couple of pages of the book, I pretty much introduced the entire story in the first 6 pages of the book, rather than lead it on to like the last 2 or 3 pages. I wanted to get everything in there, because I think there's enough room in a 22-page book to tell a very wide screen story, rather than just leave a piecemeal throughout the whole series. I wanted to set the stage initially from book 1, and then go from there. But I mean, it's there's a lot of complex issues involved in this. Like there's like her husband was brutally murdered. So it's like that's hard to comprehend. And how would you deal with that? You know, I mean, I could make a book. I could make a book based on that by itself as a horror
Yeah.
as a horror story. You know what I mean? That's like, you know, but that's just a backdrop to this. It gets worse. You know, could it get any worse? Yes, it can. You know, I mean, it's like, I don't mean to be flippant about it. I mean, I know it's fictional, but it's like you have to get into that headspace as well. You know, try and put people in that headspace. You know.
Well, and like you said, I mean, yes, the story you're telling is fictional, but the elements of it are very real. Most of us have dealt with grief, and it's such a strong emotion, you know, and something very, very hard to overcome. It's something that's not easy for anybody, and there's no like one size fits all on it. People process it in very, very different ways through various lengths of time. You know, some people never get over certain griefs. Some people are able to comprehend and deal with things very quickly. But the death that takes place in this first issue, I can imagine would take anybody quite a long time to get over, especially dealing with a young child at that. You're a parent, you're co-parenting with another person, and then all of a sudden that's taken away, and now you're the only parent. Has to be very difficult. So there's so many elements here that you're going through. Not only we haven't even really got, you and I haven't gotten into the, more like supernatural elements of this or anything, or the, more sinister elements. But so in this series, of course, we're dealing with the base level of grief that anybody would go through watching, their spouse murdered and, out in basically, broad daylight or whatever, and having to deal with that. Not only that, we're also dealing with a couple that was, parenting a young child together. They're co-parenting this child together, Samir and
Nadia.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to go over the son's name, but
right.
Samir, right?
Samir, yeah.
Okay, good. Wanted to make sure I pronounce it right. So they're trying to co-parent Samir together, and now that's been taken away as well. So now Nadia is completely on her own here, trying to deal with raising a son. So again, there's just so many elements that are being brought into this book. Even if you strip away the more sinister, supernatural elements of what's going on in the story, there's just that base level of grief that anybody would have to deal with, and that is horrifying in itself. So I can only imagine layering on top of that what you've layered on top of here. Again, a setup for a very terrifying story.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I'm glad you got that response or reaction rather. So I hope everyone else that reads it gets the same, because we're off and running,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who's read it, they come away with that. They think they either think it's really dark, or they enjoy the story, which to me is a win-win. That's exactly what I was going for. There's a lot of elements in this story which is going to sound really weird and really funny, but some of these things, the events that happen in the book, actually happened to us in this apartment, but we just embellished a lot of it. Like for example, the house fire that the lady, her neighbor, she meets on the street the following morning, and the nosy neighbor introduced herself, and she tells her about what happened in her apartment, that people had died previously, and it was terrible. And she goes into the gory details that a nosy neighbor would, and her reaction is like total shock that no one had told her this, because that's what happens in New York apartments. You live in a pre-war building, for example, where I live. It has been around for, I don't know, let's say 100 years, probably more. There's a history to these apartments. People have lived and died in these apartments. We don't know what circumstances they've lived and died. Sometimes it's violently. Like there's a lady down the hall. She died very violently. So it's like they don't tell you this when you move in. They just go, "Here's the keys. Yeah, welcome, happy new homeowner." So in our particular apartment, I was leaving the house one day, and the neighbor across the hallway stopped me and goes, "Oh, you're the new tenant?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a neighbor." She goes, "There was a fire in your apartment. Did they not tell you about that?" Word for word. I'm like, "No, I didn't." She goes, "Well, when you look in the bathroom, look at the window frame," and it was all charred. The lady had, or whoever it was in the apartment, had left a candle burning while they were having a bath and left the house, and the whole thing went up, and almost set the whole place on fire because the fire department had busted the door in. So I said, okay, that was the basis of that story. I went a lot more darker with my version of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's also a funny there's a funny thing that happened at the end of the book. For the Kickstarter, I'd asked 10 people to be in the book. If 10 backers for the Kickstarter could pledge $200, and they'd be drawn into the book.
Mm-hmm.
Much to the displeasure of the artist, of course. He's 10 face. And he's like, where am I going to fit all these people? I'm like, don't worry about it. We'll put them on the subway or something. We'll figure it out. But we were off to the races with that one because that was a great pledge level. We made a bundle of that. I had a lady call me. She's a psychic. She's from Long Island. And she called me and she said, hey, just want to let you know I backed your book. Now, I had a great first Kickstarter. All friends. I was a bartender for years, so I know a lot of people. So I hit everybody up, So we made a bundle on the first book,
Mm-hmm.
And some of them wanted to be in it, So it was great. So she wrote to me and she goes, "Listen, I pledged your book, $10 donation, whatever it was." I said, "Great, thank you so much, much appreciated." Ding, phone it up 5 minutes later. I still have the text on my phone. I looked at it the other day because sometimes you tell a story and of course we're writers, we embellish stories, but. This story is actually word for word because I still have her in text from her. She sent me a message on Instagram because I changed my pledge. I want to be the $200. I want to be drawn into the book, I said, "That brilliant." She goes, "Yeah, but I don't just want to be any old character. I want to be the psychic that shows up at the end and fights the crime boy." I'm like, it's in the script. Nobody has seen it yet. Not even the artist has seen it yet. I have it on my iPad because I wrote the thing on my iPad at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how did she know that? So the book was already haunted from the get-go. You know what I mean? And that's the character that she plays in the book. She plays Mrs. Borisov. She shows up at the end. She wants to do a seance in the house. That's the character she plays.
Amazing. And yeah, very, very cool that that's a good psychic, man.
It's a good little story to tell if I ever get a chance to tell it at a con or something. You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. And so many elements going into this book. Like you said, you're able to make your apartment there a character in the book. And there's so much history. I like how you talk about that in the first part, first explaining here. So many times people move into a house and if you're anything like me, you've been around people before who are kind of, want to shy away from a house that they heard somebody died in or whatever. Mm. And we have to realize, look, these houses have all been around. Somebody's died in everything, now
it's probably easier to find the history of a house versus an apartment building with like 100 units in it. You're not going to find any. You're not going to find any. At least anyone willing to remember anything about it. Unless the neighbors still living next door remembers everything that happened there. But as I said, I can tell. I think of 2 different apartments in this building that things have happened, and the new tenant gets a new coat of paint, and after it's brand new. It's like
yep.
You have to live with the ghosts.
Exactly. It's those things that we don't want to think about. That are there that are lingering in the past that are still right there with us. And I think that this book obviously does a really good job capturing that. Of course, we take the center of the book there, this crying boy painting that's so creepy. The second that you're introduced to it on the page, it's just they're looking at you and you're just thinking to yourself, my God, what a kind of disturbing piece. And I think it does a wonderful job kind of like being the catalyst of this whole story here. Working with the artist, working with Rob on this must have been, very, very interesting. You said you kickstarted the book before you brought it to Keenspot and got it published. So you obviously I'm guessing you found Rob on your own? Or?
Well, yeah, of course. I knew of his work. I was friends with him on Facebook and stuff, and
okay.
I'd seen his work and I loved it. And I think it must have been during the COVID lockdown when everyone had pencils down. Mm-hmm. I thought it was the right time to approach him and ask him if he wasn't busy, would he be interested? And he said he was, and we hooked up. And I paid him for the first initial pages, and then I said, "Listen, if you want to do this, would you like to be co-creator?" So see where this goes. And he goes, yeah. So, he did pretty good for the first Kickstarter, and it was a great experience. My first experience with another creator to make a book. So, I mean, it was very surprising to see how it was received by people on Kickstarter, because it's a daunting prospect to launch a Kickstarter, and kudos to anybody out there who's doing it or has done it, because it's a very stressful event, or experience, and it's you sink or swim, and it's a lot of work. And as I said, credit to anybody who's ever done it. If you've succeeded or failed, you stepped into the ring and you did it, and fair play. So that's what we did, and we approached everybody with the book. Sent it to everybody. We didn't get hardly any responses, of course. That's the way it goes with comics these days. That's as good as a rejection letter right there. But yep. We had a couple of interests at the beginning, and then eventually, fast forward to now, I had a great experience with a publisher called Keenspot, because I had created a second book called Squish and Squash with Mike Hartigan, a New Zealand artist, fantastic artist, and also the letterer to these two books is Justin Birch. So shout out to Justin Birch. He's a great letterer. If you're ever looking for a letterer, he's a man. But as I said, Squish and Squash was born out of having worked on the Crime Boy for 2 years, and I needed a comedy chaser after being stuck in the depressing Queen's apartment building for 2 years. I needed a break, so I had explored the idea of doing a kids book, an all ages book, by going to Baltimore Comic Con in 2022, and I approached Mad Cave. They just purchased paper cuts. And I was like, that could be an interesting angle there. So I created Squish and Squash one night at work, and I found Mike Hartigan on Instagram. We did a couple of page sample, and we sent it off. Keenspot, they loved it, and we went with them. So the Crime Boy, I was like, I'm looking for a home for that. And they were into it as well. So here we are today, and next month it's coming out. Keenspot. So I have two of my books with them, and they've been fantastic. Shout out to Chris Crosby and everybody at Keenspot. They're really, really, really great communicators. Very responsive with emails and messages. It's great. And that's one of the most vital things about being a creator in comic books, is having communication with your editor and your publisher, because you don't want to be left in the dark about anything. It's stressful enough as it is. For everybody involved. But to go back to what you said about the Crime Boy, how it came about. As I said, we did the Kickstarter with Rob, and from 2021 to 2023, it's 4 books, and we just wrapped up the 4th book there before Christmas. And what happened with book 1 was I had emailed, I'd gotten a list off somebody. Forgive me, I can't think of the guy's name, and shame on me for it. He gave me a list of the top 50 retailers in the United States. So I emailed them all, and I said, hey, I have this horror book and I have this all ages book, would you be interested in? I think I'd missed the FOC for Squish and Squash, so I was still on the ball with the Crime Boy. So I said, would you be interested in carrying these books? So nobody responded. 50 emails, no one responded. So I said, wow. I got on the phone the next day, and I said, you know what, I'll take a day or two, I'll call them all. And I did, and then I followed them up with another email. I sent them all a copy. I didn't do it in the first email. I did the second email. I said, "Here's a copy of the book. Let me know what you're thinking." And fast forward, FOC came along, and we did over 3,500 sold. I guess orders for the book. That's pretty good. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, but for a small independent publisher, and for a first time creator like me, that was a hit. I considered it a hit,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at that now, going into February. So I'm excited about it. So I have to build on that. I have to now follow up to all the stores. The next book, come on, don't just go one and done. Follow the series, because we have it. The second book expands on another part of the story. I don't know if I should go into it here without ruining it, but we also have a really great collection of covers with this series. You know,
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, that A cover alone is amazing. But yeah, there's some really great covers. You sent some over to me so I could check some out.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah. I think it was
stuff.
the first cover is Carlos Villas. He's an artist for Iron Maiden and Megadeth. He was a bit of a coup to get him because I couldn't get him the first time. And then he messaged me then like last year and said, "Are you still looking at them?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So then his cover was a big seller, and then Rob Moran, co-creator, his cover was number 2, the most popular one, and you can just tell like Rob designed the demon. It's like it's totally unique, you know. It's like that mouth on the chest and stuff, you know. It's like I don't know where he got that from. I didn't give him any description. I just said, "Listen, go crazy." I said, "Think Hellraiser. I don't know. I don't even know if we did go crazy with the design together, you know. I left it to him, you know, and he came up with his own crazy evil imagination with this demon, you know. So
and a very great design. I have to say, you don't really, you know, judging on the book, and then, you know, kind of going back to what you were saying a minute ago about how you sent out all those emails to all those retailers and then followed up with phone calls and then another email and everything. I mean, you're really putting in the work, of course, here. But
you kind of have to, because like, okay, we had a spotlight in December's previews, which was huge.
Yeah.
You know, I thought Squish and Squash would have been like, it's a no-brainer. That's going to get it. It didn't, because apparently kids' books don't sell. Mm-hmm. Horror is the god, you know. Horror is the one, is the king. So, but having said that, I said, okay, we have a spotlight in previews. It doesn't matter, you know. It's stores are passive. They're not going to just pick up any book that has a spotlight, you know. Mm-hmm. It's up to you to get out there, especially coming from a small publisher like Keen Spot, like, you know, Marvel and DC. As I call a lot of these stores, Marvel and DC, no problem. They buy them because they have, I don't know, can they return those books? I'm not sure how it works, but some of these stores don't even carry Dark Horse comics. They were telling me they just don't want to take a gamble, you know. So why would they take a gamble on me? You know, totally unknown, a horror book. It's in black and white, you know, which is its own. We haven't even explored that aspect of it yet in this interview. But I was getting a bit of pushback from a publisher or two about that aspect of the book. Would you not? I said, no, I don't want to do it on color. Black and white is where this is exactly what the tone I wanted to go for the book. But so anyway, getting back to the spotlight thing. You could easily sit back and, okay, let's see what happens here. But I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to take a chance. I said, I have a list of 50 stores. Let me just see what happens. You know, let me write to them, you know. And I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I'm like, you know what? So a couple of them actually said to me, wow, you created this and you're calling us? I said, yeah. I said, why not? You know, this wasn't like something I just created yesterday. I've been invested in this since 2020 even, because when I had the idea. So it's been like, you know, it's a long road, but I'm not going to just sit back and give up, you know. I'll keep doing it. I'll call them again next month for the second book and everything else. I'll keep the train going here, you know, because it's a new world. You have to build up relationships with retailers now. It's not like, I guess it's all changed. So there's been many conversations about this. There's been many comics journalists talking about this recently. So it's like, yeah, the direct market is in turmoil, and you know, anything that you can help your own product is going to be a big plus for you, you know. So I reached out to them and I said, listen, whatever you guys need, you need merch, you need me to do sketch covers, you need me to, I'll show. So I actually got a signing with a store in New York based on those cold calls, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
very cool.
I mean, you know, look, some people might not like doing that, but like I did it, you know. Mm-hmm. I'll do it again, no problem, you know. You know.
I mean, that's something, you know, you stand by your work, of course, you know, you want to get it out to the masses, you know, as much as you can. And, you know, reading this, I can confidently say this as well, you know, of course, you know, we're in the year 2024, there's, you know, MCU was a big thing that's kind of calmed down a little bit. There's a little bit of backlash on that now, whatever. People don't love it as much anymore. James Gunn is really trying to build up the DC cinematic universe, whatever. There's a lot of that going on. Now you take a book like this that just, like I said, I mean, this thing reads like a horror movie. I feel like I'm I'm reading, a horror movie, an original concept at that. But if this thing is not optioned at some point, I'll be insanely surprised. And
that'd be nice,
to
wouldn't
say
it?
that, to say that, such a small print run, and you're saying, a lot of these major retailers won't even, maybe have a copy or two in their stores. Everybody's going to want to make sure that they get on this. You don't want to miss the boat on this. I mean, you have a copy of this in your private collection, and then who knows.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a famous writer or two out there who sent a book to would give me a little blurb or something, would help me out big time. Someone who's in the horror space. Yep. That would help it big time too. I think word of mouth will help it as well. I mean, as I said, 3,500 copies is nothing to be sneezed at. It's an accomplishment, but I think
a big accomplishment.
I think word of mouth will be a big plus too. Even though we're in the internet age, people still talk, and if some big name out there reads it and says, "Oh, you gotta check this out," hey, we got a second print run. Happy days, But I mean, as you said, it reads like a horror movie because I love horror movies, but there's been so many bad ones made, so disappointing, So I wanted to make this. I made this because I love horror and I want to be scared too. I want to enjoy it. So I'm writing this out of love, out of enjoyment, because I want to be that person who opens it and reads it and gets a little chill, That's how I kind of like. Is that possible to do? I guess it is, because I stood back and we role played this with my wife, some of the dialogue to get the dialogue right, and. Just before we put it all together, I just wanted to make it feel normal, feel natural, So as I said, like The Exorcist would be one of my biggest inspirations. I feel that that's one of the best horror films ever made. It's more like a documentary than a movie.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, one of the other things I want to kind of circle back to, like, again, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We've already hit the half-hour mark here, but
oh, you're fine. It's only 8:25. Well, that's up to you. You can go another 10, 15 minutes if you want.
Yeah, sure. I definitely, like you said, this is hitting shops on February 21st, I believe. Sorry, I don't have the street date in front of me, but I believe it's February 21st, and you've already contacted a lot of shops to make sure you're able to get it into customers' hands and all of that. You're out there hustling, doing signings, doing like you said, blank sketch covers and everything else. Now you've done some illustration, you've done some covers. I noticed one of your credits over here on League of Comic Geeks is a cover of Roach Mill. Which is
I didn't even know about that. Is that a thing, League of Comic Geeks?
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen League of Comic Geeks? Yeah, it's a very cool app. Yeah, definitely check it out.
I'm on there.
Oh yeah, you're a creator on there. Absolutely.
That Tom McWeeny, he reached out to me and he offered a cover for that. I was very privileged to do that. No, it wasn't it was my first effort as a cover. It's not. I mean, it's a bit static, but I mean, I was delighted to get the opportunity to do it. Sadly, one of the creators of that book passed away. I think last year, year before. But I don't know what's happening with it now. I said that but I said it was a great opportunity to get that, and I was thankful for that. And actually, it's funny because Tom McWeeny now he's a variant cover artist for Squish and Squash Book 2, which is out tomorrow in comic book stores. So if you want to check out an all ages book, a fun all ages book from Keen Spot, we have Book 2 out tomorrow. It's a local comic book store.
And the Crying Boy, you said, is planned 4 issues there for the main story, and then Squish and Squash is currently an ongoing, or do you have like an end in mind for that book?
I had 4 set up with Mike. We'll see what happens after that, because
sure,
there's it's not like the Crying Boy where there's an ending to the story. Squish and Squash is an adventure series. They can go on forever,
continue to go on adventures.
It's whether or not we have to, if Mike has the time to do any more issues and stuff, we'll see what happens, because he's becoming a bit of a superstar these days,
And I mean, that is a beautiful book. I'm just looking at some of the artwork here for it, because I actually hadn't checked it out up until this point, and a very, very beautiful book. I'll definitely be my local comic book shop does get everything from Keen Spot in, so I will be picking up a copy tomorrow. But
I was very lucky with the two artists that I teamed up with both books. Rob Moran, phenomenal artist.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, and I put him back on the shelves on the States where everyone could see his amazing artwork. You know, I don't think he's been in a book since he did an Image book there a few years ago. I think that was the last time he was in an American comic. But yeah, I'm delighted for him. I'm delighted to get his name back out there. You know, and then of course Squish and Squash, Mike Hartigan, he's phenomenal artist. You know, he's as I said, he's already becoming big. You know, I was just lucky to get him on Squish and Squash at the beginning of his. I think he hadn't signed with his agent at that time, so I just got him at the right time, like a week beforehand. So it was like, woohoo, cool, you know. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have these great creators on board these two books, you know, and we'll see what happens, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that you know, kind of speaks for itself. For the most part, you're not usually seeing a beautifully illustrated but poorly written book, or you know, vice versa most of the time. So that definitely speaks to your talents as a creator as well, and your writing, that you're able to attract that kind of talent. I want to talk, you know, for a minute, if we can, about
Thank you.
Rob
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, of course. I want to talk about Rob a little bit more. You know, like you said, Rob has been in the industry for quite a long time. Has not done as much recently, but you kind of, I don't know if you, I don't want to say you pulled him out of retirement for this book. He definitely wasn't retired, but
no, I think he's been doing a lot of work for Marcosia. It's a British publisher, so I don't know how their distribution model is over here. As I said, we all know how that goes, you know, with the direct market. But he has a lot of stuff with them. I'm sure he has a lot of projects up his sleeve, because you know he as I said, he put a lot of effort into this series, and I think he mentioned something recently that he was doing a new book with Marcosia, like a horror series of his own. So yeah, I think this will definitely give him wind in his sails, you know, to get more stuff out there. You know, I just, if you haven't seen his stuff out there recently, you will now. You know, definitely will now. I think it's definitely in his favor to keep the ball going, you know, keep the ball rolling, because he's a great artist, you know, great creator, you know.
And such a wonderful like matchup here. It really fits the tone of what I feel like you're going for. You can really tell that communication between you and Rob was paramount in creating this book.
We had our moments, you know, like everything else, but like you know, that's the way, that makes it great, though. You know, I mean, that makes it like, you know, it's with tight bond, you know.
Yes.
But I mean, I said, like, it's four books, and it's a very intense story. So that was bound to have a little bit of you know, not issues, but like, you know, how should I say this? Like for example, he's very realistic in his artwork. So it was incumbent on me to send him, like, for example, very clear photographs on my iPhone 8, which wasn't always the case. You know, but yeah. So no, it was great. It was a great experience, you know. And you know, you learn, you live and learn. You know, every day, every single thing. Like comic books, I'm still learning every day. There's nobody in this industry who's not. You know, if you're static, then you're done. You know. Yeah.
I love that you say that. I think I told you right at the beginning of this, before we started recording, I had just talked to Steve Orlando, a big, huge creator over at Marvel and DC, done a lot of, creator-owned stuff as well. But, one of the things that I asked Steve was, because he's continuously pushing himself. You look at any project that he's done, his work on Wonder Woman, his Martian Manhunter series, his Scarlet Witch series, all of that. Now he's working on Spider-Man 2099 again. He's always kind of like the go-to guy to like really flesh out a character that's not, I can't say not fleshed out, but that, needs some more element added to them or whatever. And Steve's biggest, what he really wanted to say was, I challenge myself every time I write something. I cannot get comfortable. I have to sit here, and painstakingly, challenge myself, because if I'm not, then it's not worth it. It's not worth putting it out. It's not worth reading.
Well, because the audience is very sophisticated nowadays.
Very.
You're it's like anything else. It's like comic book readership. You've got an older crowd who's been with you for a long time. Like I'm in my 50s. I've been reading comics forever. And then you've got a younger audience who are a lot more sophisticated as well in that sense, of technologically savvy and everything else. So they know a lot about the industry that we didn't when we grew up, because we didn't have the internet and everything else. So if you're going to put a book out there, it has to speak to them as well. It can't just be a book that you wrote and it was like, oh, it's fine. No, it has to have multiple layers of depth to the character and everything. You can't just, it's not, it can't be just an overly simplified storyline anymore. People want depth, they want a lot more. They're putting a lot of money out there too for it. For example, it's an expensive hobby, so they want to get bang for the buck, I guess,
Sure. Yeah. And again, another really good thing to point out, comics aren't cheap. It's an investment, a lot of times you have to be invested in the story that the storytellers is telling you. You have to be invested in that. And I'm not talking about, the short-term type of gains, flipping books or anything like that, but I mean that emotional investment. You have to really connect with those characters. And to bring it back around and to wrap this up and everything, I know that you've done that here with our characters here in The Crying Boy with Nadia and Samir. I'm really invested in those characters. And, sometimes you crack open a book and you think, all right, these are, blank slates. There wasn't a lot of emotion. There's not a lot behind these characters. They're an archetype and I'm not sure how much emotional investment I can put into this character to really make this work. And, that's kind of the point of our podcast is to, that's our niche here is we take a look at brand new first issue comic books that come out and we tell our listeners, is this enough is there enough here for us to recommend that you guys add this to your pool to go on to issue number 2 and all of that? That's our thesis here, that we try to do every single episode. And, I can confidently say that, The Crying Boy, yes, 110%. The cliffhanger that it leaves you on, you're going to be begging to come back from where I don't know when issue 2 drops. I don't know if you have that information.
It's every 2 months, so it's March, so it's February is issue 1, April's issue 2, yeah, and then issue 2 I haven't shared that with you, but we have introduced a new character into that. We introduced a priest with his own disturbing connection to the painting. But he's in Philadelphia, and it's a whole other story. And he becomes involved in it. But it's it gets very interesting from. You think the cliffhanger of this one is good? Well, you see what happens in the next one.
Wow! And ladies and gentlemen, that is how you sell a comic book. So with a great story and like Niall said here, a whole lot of hustle, and then bringing in that readership for issue.
You gotta love it. You gotta love the process. You gotta love what you created, and and sprinkle a bit of love on it, and get out there and share it to the world. And hope for the best. Not hope for the best, but like make it happen at least. Try and make it happen.
Do your best to make it happen. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to wrap up here. I don't want to take too much of your time.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I really appreciate you having me on, and thanks for the interest in the book. And I hope people out there who haven't ordered it can go on to keenspotshop.com and pick up a copy. If you can't get it at your comic book store, you can get it at Keenspot.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys check out Keenspot. I will have all of this information in the show notes as well. I'll have direct links to the book. I'll have, I think, in wrapping here, one of the most important things that you guys can do is go to your local comic book shop and ask for this book, ask for The Crying Boy. Let your local comic book shop know that you want it added to your pool. That shows them you're committed to picking up every issue, and they can make sure that they order that in for you. And that is the very best thing you can do. But like Niall said, if not, go to Keen Spot and make sure you guys pick up your copy. Do whatever you can to make sure you got a copy of this book, because the writing is on the wall here. You are going to want to get on the ground level here and make sure you have a copy of this in your collection. That's all I can say.
Thank you very much. That's I can't ask for any more than that. That's brilliant. I'm going to hire you.
well, thank you so much. But yeah, thank you again, and make sure you guys check out The Crying Boy, dropping February 21st in your local comic book shop or on Keen Spot. And go check out Squish and Squash. That is in your local, issue number 2 is in your local comic book shop tomorrow, January 24th. And yeah, if you have anything else you want to plug before I let you go, please do so.
I have a couple of projects up my sleeve. I have this one's more like it's science fiction. It's kind of like Micronauts meets Transformers, meets Battlestar Galactica, and it's called Omni Must Be Destroyed. It's it's got a little bit of magic in there as well. You know, I'm developing that right now, and hopefully by the summer or the early fall, I'm going to launch it. Thank you very much for having me on, Daniel. Much appreciated. You know.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today, and have a good one, Niall.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.